Now we shall talk about the chapter soil conservation. Soil conservation is one of the important steps which has to be taken nowadays because there is so much of loss of the soil due to various reasons, and there is erosion like soil erosion by various agents, sand erosion, and this is leading to the loss of soil which is losing its fertility, because of which our crop is also losing its yield and capacity to produce. So now first we shall talk about soil erosion. Soil erosion or water erosion, right? Soil erosion, that is through the water, so we call it as a water erosion. Water erosion is nothing but the loss of the soil, the top soil or some layers of the soil, because of the water. That is the agent. Water is acting as an agent to remove the soil, and then it will be terminated in some other place, which is causing the loss of the soil. So there are various forms of water erosion. First form is the splash erosion. Splash erosion is nothing but the beating action of the raindrops. That is splash erosion. When raindrops are falling onto the soil, it will disturb the soil particles, and the soil particles will jump away. That is splash erosion. And the second one is the sheet erosion. Sheet erosion is nothing but the uniform removal of the top layer. Top layer will be removed and that goes unnoticed, right? This is where the farmers lose their fertility of the soil. This goes unnoticed, and it is the one which is dangerous in terms of the loss of the fertility. After sheet, after removal of the top soil, then comes the rill erosion. Rill erosion is nothing but the formation of a small way, that is drawing out the some soil from a particular. Suppose this is our area, a small line will be going off. That is a rill. Next form of this is the gully erosion. Gully erosion is nothing but the increase in the size and the depth of the loss of the soil, and it will form a deep trench like going for a longer way. That is gully erosion. And next we talk about the ravines. Ravines, it is nothing but the extension of the gully. Gully is extension of a rill, and a ravine is the extension of the gully. And the last one is landslide. Landslide, as you have seen in videos or in some places, like from the hilly region, the soil from the top part will be eroded to the lower part. This happens when there is more than 20% slope of the land, and 6 meter is the width of the landslide. So these are the various forms of the water erosion, and sheet erosion is the one which is very dangerous because it goes unnoticed by the farmers, and later the fertility of the soil is lost, and we cannot get it back, right? And for this to happen, there are various reasons, right? There may be intensity of the rainfall which is falling onto the soil, if vegetation is there or not, and also the what is the type of soil where it is there, whether it is a sandy or a clay. So depending on the conditions and various soil characteristics also, this water erosion excuse me, water erosion forms. Now let us talk about the various factors influencing this water erosion. Various factors affecting this water erosion. The first and foremost is the rainfall. when we are talking about the rainfall, it may be intensity, duration, distribution, and various different characteristics of the rainfall itself. So when we are talking about the rainfall, intensity is the one which will be affecting much. If rainfall is falling with a higher intensity, and definitely the soil will be eroded very much faster. And duration, as there is more longer the duration of the rainfall that is occurring, and more of the soil will be infiltrated. Later the water will stagnate on the soil, and then it leads to the runoff. Because of runoff, again the soil will also be lost with the runoff. And the distribution, it depends where how much amount is falling on which place and how it is, right? So these are various characters of rainfall which will be affecting. And the second factor is vegetation. As we know, if vegetation or the plants are there in a particular area, the erosion from that particular area will be less. That happens because when a particular soil is having a plant, the plant will definitely hold some amount of the soil, and it will not be easy to detach the soil from under the vegetation, and it will be very difficult for movement of the soil from one place to another. And otherwise, if it cannot erode the soil directly, the water may also fall through the stem and onto the surface of the soil, which is called as stem flow. And also, if the small water droplets are coming together or coalesce and make a bigger droplets, and they fall through the leaf, that is called as leaf drips. And this is also one of the form of water which is reaching the vegetation. And the third and important factor is the soil. So how soil is affecting? Under soil there is so much to discuss about. Soil, we talk about erosivity and erodibility in soil. These are two words which are very confusing: erosivity and erodibility. Right? Erosivity means it talks about the it talks about the character of the rainfall, how fast the rainfall is displacing the soil from one place to another. And erodibility talks about the susceptibility of the soil to erosion. Susceptibility of the soil to the erosion. If it is very susceptible, and it will be eroded very faster. If it is non-susceptible, it will not be eroded faster. And erosivity, it talks about the rainfall or the water character, how much or at what rate it is eroding the soil from one place to another. This is one. And also, when we are talking about the soil, there different physical properties like texture, structure, organic matter, moisture, these all matter to erosion. Texture, if the sandy what happens is, if the soil is light soil means it will be very easy to detach. If it is heavy soil, it will be very difficult to detach the soil from one place to another. Now, let me explain about how this erosion takes place. So, the process of erosion, one is the detachment. Detachment of the soil individual particles, and the next one is transportation. Transportation of that detached particle from one place to another. Like what I was talking earlier, if it is a light soil, it will be very easy to detach, because the soil particles will be very loosely held in an aggregate, and if a heavy droplet falls on that aggregate, it will be easily dispersed and individual particles can be easily detached, but the transportation of such particles will be difficult. But in case of heavy soils, the detachment itself is a difficult one. Even if it is, let me tell you, light soil, detachment is easy, but transportation is difficult, and it goes reverse for the heavy soil. Detachment is difficult, whereas transportation of particles will be very easy. This happens because in heavy soil the particles are usually clay and silt kind. So the clay particles, since the size of the clay particle is very small, it is very easy to it will be difficult to detach, because it will be strongly bound with the other organic matter or any other particles, and so it will be very difficult to detach. Once it is detached, since the size of the clay particle is very small, it can be easily transported from one place to another. And this is the reverse case of light soil. In light soil, what happens? Detachment is easy, because it will not be held tightly by any of the particles, but transportation will be difficult. This happens because of the size of the particle. The particle size may be bigger and it will be difficult to transport from one place to another. So this is one. And as the water falls onto the soil, the infiltration rate increases for time being. After some time, the infiltration stops and the water stands on the surface of the soil, which then goes as a runoff. So with the runoff, the soil can also be eroded easily. So this is one important part. Because of the water erosion, the silt particle will be remained more sometimes. So you have to remember what are the different processes and how it happens, what are the various forms of the water erosion. I am briefing this, and you can go through the textbooks for these also. They have given a longer process, and I have just told you in short so that it will be easy for you to remember. Now let us talk about the universal soil loss equation, which is one of the important and favorite question to be set in exam. Universal soil loss equation, which was given by Wishmeyer and Smith in 1978. So the universal soil loss equation says or gives the factors, various factors which are involved in eroding the soil, and also how it is happening, why it is happening. So the law says that this is RKLSCP. These are the short or abbreviations of the different factors which are involved in. The first one is, here you can remember, R means rainfall and runoff factor, and it is very important to remember which letter indicates what factor, and definitely one of these will be asked either from the water erosion or from the wind erosion soil loss equation. So this is for rainfall or runoff factor. And next one is K. This is erodibility factor. Erodibility factor. This talks about the soil susceptibility to the erosion, right? So the next one is L. L means you can directly connect the length of the land, right? And next one is yes, slope or steepness. Steepness. And C is for cover, by the vegetation cover, you can say. And the last one, P stands for erosion control factor. So these are the various terms and not terms, various abbreviations, and what are these means. So here R stands for rainfall, and it will be easy to connect because R is for rainfall, and K is the one which is very important because it is the erodibility factor. It talks about the susceptibility of the soil. And next one is length, and next is the slope. S for slope and L for length. It is easy to connect. And C for the cover by the vegetation, and P for erosion control factor. And it is very easy to remember. How I used to remember is just RKL SCP. That is how, just simply connecting these terms, I just remembered this. Now erodibility factor, or erodibility factor that talks about the soil loss. Okay, let me just brief you about this. K is, as we know, this is a erodibility factor from how much area. This talks about a plot which is 22 meter long. 22 meter long with 9% slope under fallow. Fallow means without any of the vegetation. So erodibility factor is the susceptibility of the soil from an area of 22 meter long with 9% of the slope where there is no crop. That is the fallow. That is called as fallow, which shows that is the maximum capacity or the susceptibility of the soil to be eroded. And this erodibility factor, it varies from 0 to 0.6, right? So if there is low infiltration, if there is low infiltration, it shows that high erodibility, high K factor. If it is readily infiltrating, then less erodibility factor. So this is a reverse connection, and this is simple to understand. If there is more infiltration, then the erodibility factor will be less, and it reverse. So, and this ranges between 0 to 0.6, and K is the only one factor which is having dimensions. It is the only one which is talking about the dimensions. Now, because of the soil loss, there is water erosion, there is so much of soil loss, and in our country nearly 17 million ton of the soil is lost annually every year, and we have very less arable area, and that is, if that is also lost, means it will be very difficult to survive on the earth. Now let us discuss about the various management practices which are taken to conserve the soil under water erosion.